Early morning in Brooklyn, the streets still damp with mist, the street lights flicking off one by one, surrendering to the gloomy sky. Elena Morales pushed her old bicycle across the cracked sidewalk, the front basket swaying with each tired step. Her blue jacket was speckled with paint stains, her jeans worn thin at the knees, her hands red from the cold as they gripped the handlebars. Elena took a deep breath, letting the warm air dissolve into the cold, and whispered softly to herself, "Just get through today, every day." It was the same. This woman pedaled through each street corner, stopping by the familiar bakery to ask for an old loaf of bread, always smiling and thanking the elderly vendor before heading to Freshmart, the supermarket where she had worked in the stockroom and janitorial crew for nearly 11 years. There, no one really remembered her name. They called her Stock Lady or the Cleaning Woman. They didn't know Elena once dreamed of becoming a painter, didn't know she once had a warm family, and didn't know why her eyes always looked down whenever someone yelled at her. But that morning, when Elena removed her old helmet and brushed off a few raindrops, stepping through the back door of the supermarket, she didn't know that someone was watching her, silently, about to change everything. Elena hung her wet jacket next to the faded uniforms in the cramped break room at Freshmart. An old fluorescent tube flickered on the ceiling, casting patchy light and shadows on the stainless steel table below. She sat down, pulling out a yellowed plastic lunchbox from her cloth bag. Inside were a few cold rice grains and thin slices of fried egg, carefully arranged in one corner. She hadn't started eating when a young employee, Tommy, walked in, one earbud still hanging, the scent of cheap hairspray following him. His eyes scanned the room before he quietly sank to the floor, leaning against the shelf, hands crumpling an empty milk carton, his gaze lost. Elena watched him for a moment, not asking anything. She simply split her lunch, placed half on the lid, and slid it toward Tommy. "Eat. It's a long shift." Tommy looked up, eyes surprised, lips parting as if to decline, but a soft growl from his stomach allowed him only to whisper, "Thank you, ma'am." They ate in silence, no music, no phones, only the soft sound of chewing, the ticking of the wall clock, and the faint scent of floor cleaner lingering in the air. That moment, small as it was the only reason Elena could keep smiling each morning. At 8:15, Elena started her cleaning shift down the grocery aisles. Her rubber gloves had turned yellowish, and the water in the mop bucket quickly turned murky grey after a few rinses. She knelt down, gliding the rag across the tiled floor, each stain disappearing quietly, leaving behind silent cleanliness. A few shoes stepped past her, some nearly trampling her hands, making her flinch and pull back. But those passing never bothered to look back. She looked up, seeing only new shoes, hurried steps, eyes fixed on the shelves, never once meeting hers. A sting of pain pricked her chest. Then she lowered her head again, continuing her work. At the end of the aisle, a man was stacking products on the shelves. He wore a grey t-shirt, a new employee badge reading Andy, intern. His hands were clumsy, sometimes dropping packs of napkins, bending down quickly to pick them up, eyes darting nervously, afraid of getting scolded. Eleanor saw it, quietly stood up, walked over, and helped him gather the fallen napkins, arranging them neatly on the shelf. First day. Andy nodded, sweat beading on his temples. I don't know how to use the label gun. Elena smiled, taking the gun gently from his hand, pressing a button to reveal the label roll inside. This thing jams a lot, but if you tilt it a bit like this, it won't miss a line. She gently adjusted his grip, and for a moment, their eyes met, a flicker of awkwardness passing between them. Thank you. Eleanor, right? Yeah. If you need help, just ask. Don't be shy. Elena returned to her work, lifting the bucket, a few drops splashing onto the floor, leaving faint water stains. She didn't mind, already used to the unnoticed wetness in her life. On the second floor, through the security cameras, area manager Melissa was watching Elena from afar. She closed her laptop, sipped her coffee, eyes cold behind thick glasses. She works hard, but hard work doesn't mean efficiency, Melissa muttered, glancing at Kayla, the assistant manager taking down the employee list. Add Elena's name to next week's cut list. Kayla hesitated. But she does a good job. Melissa cut in, her voice cold and even. Layoffs don't need emotions. Kayla lowered her head. Yes, ma'am. At noon. Freshmart was crowded, the beep of barcode scanners ringing endlessly, mixed with the cries of children, the squeaking of shopping cart wheels over the tiles, and the tired sighs of customers waiting to check out. Elena stood at the end of the register, arms hugging a box that needed shelving, her back curved slightly, shoulders trembling as she lifted the box higher. Her eyes stayed on the floor, avoiding customers' eyes, avoiding the glances of young co-workers laughing, occasionally shrugging indifferently in her direction. A young employee, Mason, with dyed blonde hair and a wrinkled uniform, sat leaning against the cookie shelf, eyes glued to his phone, fingers swiping quickly. As Elena walked past him, she quietly straightened a tilted cookie box and continued. Mason glanced at her, sighed, and went back to his game. At checkout lane 4, an elderly woman with trembling hands handed over a crumpled coupon to the cashier. The young cashier frowned. "This coupon's expired, ma'am." The old woman's lips quivered, her hands shaking. I didn't know. I couldn't read it clearly." Eleanor, walking by, stopped and bent down. "Let me see, please." She gently took the coupon, reading each line carefully, then turned to the cashier. "If you can, could you try scanning it, just in case it's still valid?" The cashier scoffed. "New policy doesn't allow expired coupons." The elderly woman lowered her head, lips moving. "I'm sorry. I don't have enough money." Elena opened her wallet. Inside was a $5 bill, a few coins, and an old photo of her with a young boy. She gently pulled out the $5 bill and placed it on the counter. "Let me cover the rest for her." The old woman looked up, tears welling in her eyes. "Oh no, I can't. It's okay. It's cold today. Please go home and rest." The elderly woman clutched Elena's hand tightly, her wrinkled hand cold as ice. Her eyes met Elena's, and for the first time that day, Elena felt she wasn't invisible. At the customer service counter, Manager Melissa stood from afar, arms crossed, eyes cold, lips curling into a half-smile, always trying to play hero. Kayla, the assistant, spoke softly. She was just helping an old woman. Melissa shot Kayla a glance, her voice sharp as steel. "We don't pay employees to play charity. Note this down and send it to me." Kayla lowered her head, hiding a sigh. At 2:30 p.m., Elena returned to the stockroom, her shoulders heavy, each step slow but steady. She stacked boxes on the shelves, carefully aligning each corner, wiping the dust off milk cartons, keeping the aisles clear. Andy, the intern from before, came by, seeing Eleanor struggling with a heavy box. "Let me help you." Eleanor smiled softly. "It's all right. You take care of the left section." Andy nodded, gratitude in his eyes. Today, he wasn't as afraid as yesterday, his hands working steadier, faster. Elena watched him, nodding quietly to herself. Everyone started from zero once. In another corner, Mason lounged with his feet up, biting into a half-eaten snack bar, sneering. "Why is she working so hard? No one even cares." His friend, another young employee, shrugged. "Let it go. She's old anyway. Sooner or later, she'll get laid off." They burst out laughing, eyes back on their phones, ignoring Elena dragging a heavy trash bin from the stockroom to the back door, her breath forming white clouds in the cold, her hands trembling in the wind. Through the security cameras, Melissa still watched, eyes critical, jotting down notes. Elena, distracted with customers, unauthorized payments, slow work. Kayla saw it and whispered, "She's not slow. She's just careful." Melissa didn't answer, only lowering her voice. "This world doesn't pay for carefulness." Kayla. Eleanor didn't know that every step she took, every small act, was being watched, judged, and turned into cold numbers on a monthly report. But for Elena, each smile from a customer, each grateful glance, each moment she straightened a crooked box, was what made her feel human. Even if no one saw it, she still chose to do what was right. The cold wind slipped through the warehouse door every time someone entered, carrying the musty smell of old cardboard boxes. Elena finished stacking the last box, sitting down on the step behind the warehouse, her swollen hands trembling lightly from exhaustion. She pulled a small handkerchief from her pocket, wiping the sweat from her forehead, then looked at the old photo of her and a boy about 8 years old, curly-haired, smiling brightly. Eleanor gently traced the photo with her finger, whispering, "Mom's still here, trying every day." In the break room, Mason lounged with his legs on the table, texting a friend with a mocking chuckle. "Old lady Elena's still mopping the floors every day. Just watching her makes me tired." Another employee, Brady, glanced over and whispered, "Heard her name's already on the layoff list." Mason raised an eyebrow. "Really? But she works so hard." Brady shrugged, lowering his voice. "That's why. She makes more than us. Company needs to cut costs." Mason let out a sneer. "That's great. If she's gone, we won't get nagged to work harder." They both burst into laughter, unaware that Andy was sitting quietly in the corner, gripping his water bottle tightly, eyes staring down at the floor, a discomfort rising in his chest with no words to express it. At the customer service counter, Eleanor was helping an elderly customer exchange a defective product. The woman fumbled, her face filled with worry. I tore the box." Eleanor smiled, gently placing her hand over the woman's hand. "It's okay, ma'am. I'll handle it for you." Melissa appeared behind them, arms crossed. "Eleanor, policy says we don't take back torn packages." Eleanor turned, still keeping her calm smile. "But she just bought it, and the product is still intact." Melissa narrowed her eyes. "Rules are rules." The old woman's eyes welled up. "I'm sorry. I didn't know." Eleanor lowered her head. "Don't worry. I'll take care of it." The woman grasped Eleanor's hand, tears brimming. "Thank you, dear." Melissa turned away, her voice ice cold. "Give me the receipt. I'll review it." Eleanor exchanged a look of comfort with the customer, then quietly took the receipt, her hands trembling slightly. That afternoon, as Elena walked past the aisles, she overheard the whispers. "Did you hear Elena's about to get laid off?" "Yeah. It's sad, but why'd she stay so long anyway?" "True, but she's hard to approach. Makes me feel guilty for slacking." Elena slowed her steps, each whisper like a needle piercing her chest. She didn't turn around, didn't react, only gripped the handle of her old cart tighter. It seemed everyone in the store knew except her. In the management office, Kayla held the report, hesitating as she looked at Melissa. "Elena doesn't deserve to be on this list." Melissa sipped her coffee, her voice indifferent. "You think this company runs on feelings?" Kayla lowered her voice. "She's been here over 10 years. Melissa set her coffee cup down without taking her eyes off the screen. "And I'm not letting her set a bad example for the younger staff. The company needs speed, cheap labor, and people who follow orders." Kayla lowered her head, her hand clutching the pen, her gaze distant. As Andy was clocking out, he saw Elena sitting on the back steps of the warehouse and gave a small wave. "Elena, I'm heading out now." Elena looked up, giving him a tired smile. "Be careful on your way home." "Andy." Andy stood for a moment, then lowered his head. I saw them scolding you today. I know you were just trying to help." Elena shook her head, offering a sad smile. "It's okay, Andy. I'm used to it." Andy opened his mouth as if to say something, but fell silent, turning away and walking quickly into the darkness, leaving Elena alone with her old cloth bag and a frayed hand towel. That night, Elena returned to her small rented room, just big enough for a bed and a rickety wooden table. She removed her jacket, hung it up, and sat down on the floor, opening her leftover meal, dry bread and water. She looked at the photo of her son, gently placing her hand on it. "My boy, Mum's okay." But a single tear fell, soaking into the photo, leaving a blurred mark. Elena quickly wiped it away, taking a deep breath, looking up at the ceiling, whispering, "Tomorrow, I'll keep going." The next day, Elena still arrived at the supermarket on time, riding her old bicycle, wearing her gentle smile as she stepped through the back door. But the eyes around her had changed, half pitying, half curious, and an uncomfortable silence spread across the aisles. Elena didn't know, but everything was about to change. That day began with a light drizzle, the misty rain clinging to the black hair now streaked with grey as Elena pushed her rusty bicycle down the alley behind Freshmart. She sighed as she locked the bike to the iron fence, rubbing her numb hands before pulling her old jacket tight around her body as she stepped through the back door. The scent of detergent and the cold blast of the air conditioner greeted her, telling her another long day had begun. On the second-floor surveillance room, Kayla adjusted the camera, her worried eyes watching the screen showing Eleanor mopping the floor, her hands trembling as she lifted the heavy water bucket. "She doesn't deserve to be treated like this," Kayla whispered, running her hand through her brown hair, glancing at Melissa, who was reading reports. Melissa didn't look up. "The company isn't a place to play nice." Kayla swallowed hard, silent, but her hand hovered over the manual record button, secretly saving clips of Elena being scolded by Melissa and pushed around by Mason for no reason. In the warehouse, Eleanor was rearranging detergent packages on the shelf when a clumsy hand knocked an entire box to the floor, bursting open and spilling white powder everywhere. Mason stood there, muttering under his breath. "Damn, such a hassle." He turned his back and walked away, leaving Elena kneeling, her hands covered in detergent, quietly gathering each bag, scooping up the scattered powder, exhaling, eyes down, without a single complaint. From a distance, Andy, holding an inventory clipboard, clenched his hand as he watched. He stepped forward. "Let me help you." Elena looked up, smiling softly. "It's all right. You take care of your section." But Andy knelt down anyway, helping to gather the scattered powder, his eyes determined. "No, I can't just stand and watch." They worked in silence, picking up each broken piece, while Mason leaned against the wall in the distance, sneering, scrolling on his phone. At lunch, near the checkout area, a middle-aged woman with a tired face stood hesitantly in front of the discounted bread shelf. Eleanor walked by, pausing to ask softly, "Do you need any help, ma'am?" The woman offered a faint smile. "I don't know which one to get. I don't have much left." Eleanor nodded, picking out a cheaper yet fresher loaf, placing it in the woman's hands. "This one's good, soft and at a fair price." Tears welled in the woman's eyes. "Thank you." Upstairs, Kayla watched through the monitor, pressing record, her eyes stinging. Later that afternoon, Eleanor checked her time card, noticing 2 days had a 15-minute deduction marked as late even though she had arrived on time. Her hands shook slightly as she held the thin slip of paper, walking to the management office. Melissa sat there, coffee cup in hand, glancing up. "What is it?" Elena spoke softly, eyes steady. "I think there's a mistake with my hours." Melissa cut her off, her voice cold. The system doesn't make mistakes. Eleanor took a deep breath. But I was here early that day. If you could please check the cameras. Melissa set her coffee cup down sharply. You questioning me? Elena stayed silent, clutching the paper, then gently spoke. I just want fairness. Melissa let out a cold laugh. There's no such thing as fairness in this world. Elena, in the hallway. Andy paused while wiping down the shelves, watching as Elena walked out, her face pale, her hand gripping the slip tightly. He stepped forward. Elena, are you okay? Elena forced a smile. I'm fine. But her eyes said otherwise. They were the eyes of someone used to enduring, yet still strong enough to keep going. That night, Kayla sat alone in the surveillance room, plugging a USB drive into the computer, backing up the clips of Elena being scolded by Melissa, Mason pushing off work onto her, clips of Elena quietly helping customers, and clips of her kneeling to clean while others walked past. Kayla whispered, If you can't protect yourself, I will help you. She took a deep breath, looking at the clip of Elena smiling kindly at an elderly woman, patient, even as her cracked hands trembled. The next day, the sky was grey, drizzle falling on the cracked, stained pavement of the parking lot. Elena rode in, the wheels splashing through puddles, spraying dirty drops onto her worn jeans. She exhaled, locking her bike, brushing back her wet hair, pulling her old jacket tight as she stepped through the back door. 8:00 a.m. Elena started her floor shift, gripping the wet mop handle, eyes tracking each stain wiped away on the cold tile. A young employee walked past, dropping a cup of coffee, the dark liquid spreading in a steaming pool. Sorry, Elena. He fumbled, picking up the empty cup, then ran off, leaving the steaming coffee spill behind. Elena sighed, bending down, using her bare hands to wipe up the coffee as the mop water had become too thin. Her fingers trembled, the raw skin on her knuckles stinging as they touched the hot coffee. She didn't complain, only cleaned thoroughly, moved the caution sign aside, and continued. In the surveillance room, Kayla watched the screen, her eyes shimmering, her hand tightening on the mouse as she saw Eleanor wiping the floor, while behind her, Mason and Brady laughed, eating sandwiches, stepping over the freshly cleaned area, leaving wet footprints. Mason laughed loudly. Oh, there she goes again. Better clean it up. Eleanor Brady burst into laughter with him. Eleanor paused, looking at the two young men, her eyes dropping before she bent down again, wiping away the wet footprints. Melissa stood in the doorway of the surveillance room, arms crossed. Kayla, why are you staring at that cleaner all the time? Kayla swallowed hard. She doesn't deserve this. Melissa let out a dismissive chuckle. Deserve or not, it doesn't matter. The company pays for results, not pity. Kayla turned away, hiding the anger in her eyes. At 10:30 a.m., Eleanor moved to the shelves, checking for items nearing expiration. She carefully noted them in her notebook, occasionally straightening tilted milk cans, gently brushing off dust. Her hands worked meticulously, her eyes scanning each expiration date, placing the items needing removal on the cart. Melissa walked up, her gaze stern. "Elena, why are you so slow? Do you know how much the company loses every minute you waste?" Elena looked up, speaking softly. "I just want to make sure nothing gets missed." Melissa's voice dropped, cold as ice. "The company doesn't pay you to want or make sure. Just be fast. Understand?" Eleanor pressed her lips together, nodding, still clutching her small notebook. As Melissa walked away, Kayla stepped out from behind the counter, coffee cup in hand, looking at Eleanor. "Eleanor, are you okay?" Elena gave a faint smile. "I'm all right." Kayla bit her lip, placing a hand on Elena's shoulder. "You shouldn't have to get used to this." Elena paused, a hint of surprise in her eyes, then shook her head, smiling sadly. "There are some things in this world we can't change." Kayla watched Elena walk away, her hand gripping the coffee cup so hard her nails turned white. That afternoon, in the lunch area, Eleanor sat in a corner, opening her cold lunchbox plain rice with a bit of stir-fried vegetables. She ate quietly, her eyes gazing through the misty window. At the next table, Mason and Brady were talking, voices just loud enough to hear. "Heard next week they're cutting people. That old lady's definitely getting the boot." "Good. I'm tired of seeing her mop the floor all day." Soft laughter followed. Eleanor heard it, her hand pausing before she lifted the spoon to her mouth, chewing slowly, eyes down, without a single word of protest. As they left, Andy came over, holding a sandwich, sitting next to Eleanor. "I heard what they said. Don't listen to them." Eleanor let out a faint smile. "I'm okay, Andy." But her eyes were sadder than the rain falling outside the window. That night, Kayla sat alone in the surveillance room, plugging in a USB drive, saving clips of Melissa unjustly scolding Eleanor. The scenes of Eleanor kneeling to clean up spilled coffee, Mason's mocking laughter, and Eleanor helping customers. Kayla's hands trembled, her lips pressed tight, tears welling in her eyes. She doesn't deserve this. She sent an anonymous email with the videos to a mysterious address titled "Truth About Freshmart Culture. Urgent." The next day, a man in a simple shirt, wearing a badge that read "Maintenance Technician," walked into Freshmart, his deep eyes observing every corner of the store, lingering longer when he saw Elena kneeling to clean a stain near the bread aisle. He bent down, offering his hand to help Elena up. "Let me help you." Elena flustered. "It's okay. I can handle it." The man gave a gentle smile. "I know, but no one should have to do everything alone forever." His eyes were warm, yet deep, with something unusual flickering within them. Elena had no idea that this man was not just there to fix the air conditioning. He was there to witness what was being hidden. That morning, heavy rain pounded on the metal roof behind Freshmart, water trickling down the foggy glass windows. Eleanor wheeled her bike, her thin raincoat clinging to her, the cold seeping into her skin. She let out a breath, wiping a raindrop off her cheek before stepping through the back door like every other day. But today was not like every other day. 8:02 a.m. Eleanor swiped her time card, the screen blinking red with the word late. She stared, shocked, at the wall clock, its hands showing exactly 8:02. Just 2 minutes. But the system had recorded it. In the management office. Melissa glanced at the screen, a smirk forming on her lips. Good. Kayla stood beside her, holding a file, her eyes worried. She was only 2 minutes late, and it's pouring outside today. Melissa's voice was cold. Late is late. Do you like defending employees? Kayla pressed her lips together, not answering, her hands gripping the file until her knuckles turned white. Elena began her shift cleaning the produce section. Wilted leaves scattered the floor, the tiles wet from muddy footprints as customers walked in from the rain. Quietly, she wiped away each stain, rearranging the apple trays, the lettuce bins, performing every small task with care. Mason walked past, holding a hot coffee in one hand, his phone in the other as he chuckled. He suddenly bumped into a shelf, spilling coffee all over the floor, forming a large brown puddle. Damn it! Hey, Elena, clean this up. He threw her an indifferent look before walking away without a word of apology. Elena looked at the coffee puddle, then at her trembling hands, before bending down to clean it, each stroke heavier than the boxes she carried the day before. On the security camera, Kayla clenched her fist. That's enough. She opened the video files, clipping the footage of Mason spilling the coffee and walking away, leaving Eleanor to clean it alone. Mason's sneer visible, the indifference of everyone around captured clearly. Kayla saved the clip to her USB, her eyes filled with determination. That afternoon, as Elena was quickly eating her cold lunch, Melissa walked into the break room, placing a piece of paper on the table. Eleanor, sign this. Eleanor looked up, surprised. What is this? Melissa folded her arms. Disciplinary report. Tardiness. Slow work. Violating customer assistance protocols. Eleanor froze. I didn't do anything wrong. Melissa's voice was cold. You can file a complaint with the company, but your record already has 2 instances of tardiness, overstepping to assist customers and slowing down inventory checks. If you don't sign, the penalties will be harsher. Elena took the paper, her hands trembling, her eyes red, her lips quivering. I just wanted to help. I didn't mean to do anything wrong. Melissa leaned down, lowering her voice. This is a company, Elena, not a place for you to play kind. Elena quietly signed her name. As the pen left the paper, a part of her seemed to break. She left the break room, her steps heavy, walking down the hallway with tears clouding her vision, gripping the violation slip tightly, her breath ragged in her chest. As she passed the customer service counter, Andy ran after her. Elena, are you okay? Elena tried to smile. I'm fine. But the tear wouldn't listen, rolling down her cheek, mixing with the sound of rain outside. Andy clenched his fists. "It's not fair. They can't treat you like this." Elena shook her head. "That's life, Andy." But even she didn't believe her own words. In the surveillance room, Kayla sealed the USB in an envelope, exhaling, "If the company won't treat her fairly, I'll make sure someone else knows." She wrote on the envelope, "To Board of Directors, urgent." That afternoon, the man in the maintenance uniform returned, pretending to fix an outlet near the dry goods section. He glanced over, seeing Eleanor mopping the floor, while Mason stood pointing, ordering her to clean up the spill he had just made. His eyes were deep, calm, memorizing every detail, hidden in his sleeve. A tiny camera was recording everything. Eleanor sat exhausted on the steps behind the warehouse, looking at her calloused hands, her cracked nails, the pain in her joints. She pulled out an old photo of her son from her wallet, whispering softly, "Mum's so tired." Cold wind slipped through the door crack, carrying the sound of rain. But in that moment, Eleanor lifted her head, wiped her tears, and stood up. "Tomorrow, I'll still come." The rain continued, droplets drumming on the warehouse roof, echoing in the quiet morning air. Elena pushed her cart through small puddles in the narrow aisle, her old shoes soaked, leaving faint footprints on the floor. Today, Elena did not smile as much as usual. Her face showed fatigue, her eyes downcast, her steps heavy as she passed the young employees gathered and joking around by the snack counter. Andy stood nearby, stacking boxes of cookies, his eyes following Eleanor, his hands clenching. He stepped forward. "Eleanor, let me help you with the cart." Eleanor flinched, then forced a tired smile. "It's okay. You have your work to do." But Andy held onto the cart handle, pushing it with her, his eyes steady. "I don't want to just stand by anymore." Eleanor turned to him, her eyes watery, her lips trembling as if to say something. But she fell silent, placing her hand gently over Andy's hand, nodding in gratitude. In the surveillance room upstairs, Kayla stood watching the screen, her eyes red. She had sent the USB with the evidence video to senior management the previous afternoon. Today, she received a short email. "Thank you for sending this. We are conducting an internal investigation." Kayla exhaled, tears streaming down her cheeks, her heart still filled with worry. "Please get here in time, before they fire her." At the checkout area, an elderly woman handed Eleanor a few coins, her voice weak. I'm short 25 cents. Eleanor smiled gently. "It's okay, ma'am. I'll cover the rest." The elderly woman burst into tears, holding Eleanor's hand. "You're an angel, dear." Eleanor didn't respond, only squeezed the woman's hand before turning away, wiping away a falling tear. Mason stood nearby, arms crossed, lowering his voice to Brady. "See that? Playing nice again. Watch. The company doesn't pay for that." Brady scoffed. "Right. Heard they're cutting her next week anyway." That afternoon, Melissa called Eleanor into the management office. Melissa placed a stack of papers in front of Elena. "Eleanor, there's going to be a staff reduction next week. You should prepare yourself." Eleanor stood frozen. I've worked here for 11 years. I've never missed a day." Melissa let out a fake sigh. "The company needs people who are quick, adaptable. You're no longer a fit." Elena lowered her head, her hands gripping the edge of the table until her knuckles turned white, her shoulders shaking, a tear falling to the floor, blending with the sound of rain outside the window. That night, Elena sat alone on the warehouse steps, opening her old wallet, looking at her son's photo. "I'm sorry. I tried. I really tried." The rain's steady rhythm mixed with Elena's soft sobs in the empty space, in the darkness. The man in the technician's uniform quietly watched, holding up his phone, recording Elena crying in the rain. His eyes reflected a flicker of sorrow, yet remained firm. They won't be able to bury her anymore. The next morning, at the Fresh Mart headquarters, an emergency meeting connected by video. The screen showing surveillance footage, Melissa yelling at Elena, Mason laughing as he spilled coffee, Elena kneeling to clean, Elena sharing food with elderly customers. Each small act of kindness ignored, punished. A warm, deep voice spoke up. "Is this the culture our company is promoting outside the meeting room?" Kayla stood clutching her document folder, tears brimming as she heard those words. That morning, grey clouds hung over the Fresh Mart parking lot. Eleanor stood, breathing heavily after parking her bike, her hands trembling from the cold, raindrops clinging to her hair, glistening on the scarf around her neck. She stepped through the back door, adjusting her scratched name tag, taking a deep breath, whispering to herself, "Just get through today." In the surveillance room, Kayla received a call from an internal number. A warm, deep male voice spoke. "I would like to meet you privately before the morning shift." Kayla glanced quickly toward Melissa's office before hurrying down the hallway, her heart pounding. In the temporary storage room, the man in the technician's uniform stood, carrying a toolbox. He removed his cap, revealing silver-streaked hair and calm, sharp eyes. "I'm Marcus Lane, CEO of Fresh Mart." Kayla froze, her eyes wide. You're the one who received the videos." Marcus nodded slightly, looking directly at her. "And what I saw was enough." He pulled a USB from his pocket, holding it up. "Thank you for your courage." Kayla trembled. I just couldn't stand by and watch her being treated unfairly." Marcus gave a gentle smile, his eyes warm yet resolute. "Today, we're ending this." At 8:45 a.m., Melissa gathered all employees in the loading area, her voice sharp. "I need everyone here, immediately." Eleanor stood in the corner, wiping the remaining raindrops from her arms, her eyes worried as she saw Melissa unusually tense today. Mason stood with his arms crossed, sneering to Brady. "Here we go again. Another lecture." Melissa stepped forward, clipboard in hand, sweeping her eyes across everyone. "As you all know, the company is undergoing restructuring. Some positions will be cut, and those who don't fit will have to leave." The group fell silent. Elena swallowed hard, gripping her apron strap, eyes lowered. Melissa glanced at Elena, a faint smirk on her lips. "Those who work inefficiently who repeatedly break rules or who can't keep up with the pace of the job should reevaluate their place here. At that moment, Marcus walked in, no longer in the technician's uniform. He wore a dark blue shirt, khaki pants, his eyes calm yet commanding. He stepped beside Melissa, standing still. Melissa turned, her eyes confused. "Excuse me, you are—" Marcus raised a hand, cutting her off. "Marcus Lane, CEO of Freshmart." The entire room froze. Mason's eyes widened. Brady swallowed hard, and Eleanor stood frozen, eyes wide, the cleaning cloth falling from her hand to the floor. Marcus swept his gaze across the room, his deep voice resonating. "For the past 3 weeks, I've been working in our branches as a maintenance employee to see the truth from the inside." He lifted the USB in his hand. "And I have seen enough." Melissa's face turned pale. I don't understand." Marcus turned to face Melissa, his eyes sharp. "I saw a manager abusing her power to punish an employee for small acts of kindness. I saw young employees slacking off while the hardest working person here was labeled slow." He turned toward Elena, his voice softening. "And I saw a woman quietly doing the jobs no one else wanted to do, keeping this place clean, safe, and humane." The room was so quiet that the sound of rain outside could be heard. Melissa tried to keep her composure. "Mr. Marcus, I was simply following company protocol." Marcus cut in, his eyes firm. "Protocols are not meant to trample kindness." Kayla stood in the corner, eyes glistening, hands clasped tightly against her chest. Marcus turned to everyone. "I don't care how fast you work. I care if you do what's right." His eyes locked onto Elena. "Elena Morales, I am sorry it took so long for us to address the injustice you've endured." Elena stammered. I didn't think you knew who I was." Marcus nodded gently. "I saw everything." He turned to Melissa. "As of today, you are suspended pending an internal investigation." Melissa was stunned, her face drained of color. You can't." Marcus looked her straight in the eye. "I can." Marcus turned back to the group. "Everyone can be replaced, unless they bring real value. And real value isn't in speed, but in how we treat each other." His eyes returned to Elena. "And you, Elena, you are the real value I want to rebuild in this place." Elena lifted her hand to her mouth as tears poured down onto her calloused hands. Mason lowered his head in shame, while Kayla stepped forward, embracing Elena, her voice trembling. "You don't have to endure this alone anymore." Elena hugged Kayla tightly, tears flowing freely. But for the first time in many years, they were not tears of suffering. The small meeting room at Freshmart felt cramped under the weight of the silence. Marcus stood in the center, USB in hand, his eyes scanning each face. Mason with his head down, Melissa trembling, Brady shifting uncomfortably, Kayla clutching her hands, and Elena in the corner, hand over her mouth, eyes brimming. Marcus plugged the USB into the large wall screen. "Let's watch what actually happened." He pressed the button. The clips appeared. Eleanor kneeling to clean coffee spilled by Mason as he smirked and walked away. Eleanor splitting her lunch with a young co-worker who had no food. Eleanor helping an elderly woman who was short on money, holding her hand as she cried. Melissa yelling at Eleanor for being 2 minutes late on a rainy day, despite the camera showing she arrived before clocking in. Melissa scolding Eleanor for careful inventory checks while Mason and Brady played on their phones. Mason and Brady mocking Eleanor when Melissa reprimanded her. Voices from the clips rang out clearly. The company doesn't pay you to be kind. Eleanor, clean that up, old lady. Late is late. Eleanor's face appeared in each clip, trembling hands, lowered eyes, a sad yet resilient expression. The entire room was silent. A young employee in the back whispered softly, "Oh my God, I didn't know it was like this." Another person lowered their head, ashamed of every time they walked past Elena without a word of thanks. Melissa's face turned white, her lips trembling. I was just following procedure." Marcus stared at her. When procedures are used to justify cruelty and injustice, those procedures are wrong. He turned to Mason. "Do you have anything to say?" Mason mumbled. I didn't think. It was just a joke." Marcus's voice was firm, quiet, but commanding. A joke should never be built on cruelty toward your co-workers. Marcus turned, stepping toward Elena, his gaze softening. "Elena, I'm sorry it took us so long to see what you were going through." Elena burst into tears, covering her mouth, tears streaming down her face. I just wanted to do my job well. I didn't know everyone would see." Marcus placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "We saw, and today, everyone sees." He turned back to the employees. "I hope today is the day each of you asks yourself, who do you want to be in this company?" No one answered. Only tearful eyes and lowered heads. Marcus continued, "Elena is not slow. She is not useless. She is the one who keeps this place clean, organized, and who preserves kindness even when no one notices." He gestured toward Kayla, "And if it weren't for Kayla, we would never have known the truth. Thank you." Kayla. Tears welled in Kayla's eyes as she nodded softly. "I just couldn't watch anymore." Marcus pulled out a document from his folder. "As of today, Mason and Brady will be suspended to attend mandatory workplace ethics training. Melissa, you will be under investigation and suspended." Melissa sank into her chair, stunned. Marcus turned to Eleanor, his voice warm. "And Eleanor, I would like to invite you to take the position of operations team leader at this Freshmart branch." The room held its breath. Eleanor stood frozen. I don't think I deserve this." Marcus shook his head, his gaze steady. "You've deserved it for a long time. It just wasn't recognized. Now it's time to set things right." From the back, people began to clap, slowly, sincerely. The applause spread across the room, not loud, but carrying gratitude and recognition. Eleanor stood there, tears mixing with a smile. "Thank you. Thank you all. In the corner, Kayla whispered, "You're not alone anymore." Eleanor turned, and they held each other's hands tightly, tears falling. But for the first time, they weren't bitter. Marcus looked around, nodding. "Remember, a company isn't built on speed, but on character." He closed his laptop, his eyes landing on Eleanor standing tall, her gaze more determined than ever. The next day, the sun rose after days of grey rain, shining through the misty windows at Freshmart, lighting up the freshly cleaned floors. Eleanor stood in front of the mirror in the break room, adjusting her new name tag, Eleanor Morales, Operations Team Leader. Her hand trembled slightly as she touched the name tag, eyes glistening. Then she smiled a soft yet certain smile, seeing herself without weariness in the reflection for the first time in years. Marcus stood near the door, arms crossed, watching. "Are you ready?" Elena turned, nodding, her eyes steady. "I'm ready." Marcus smiled. "Today isn't the day you start being a boss. Today is the day you start spreading the way you live to this place." Elena took a deep breath. "I understand. No, Kayla, I didn't change them. I just kept living my way, and they chose to change." Late that night, back in her small room, Elena sat on the bed, opened her wallet, and took out her son's photo. His eyes still shone as brightly as ever, and for the first time in years. Elena smiled, looking at the picture, not with hidden pain, but with quiet relief. "I kept my promise, my boy. I didn't give up." She placed the photo beside her bed, lay down, and closed her eyes, listening to the soft rain outside the window. But inside, the rain had finally stopped. The next morning, as Freshmart opened, Eleanor smiled at everyone, adjusted the promotion sign, helped a young mother buckle her baby into the cart, and picked up fallen boxes on the shelf. No one asked her to. No one paid her for that kindness. But Eleanor did it anyway, because that was the way she chose to live. As Marcus left, he didn't say goodbye. He simply paused at the window, saw Eleanor bending down to help an elderly man pick up a fallen bag of flour, smiled, and turned away.